Welcome to Shallow. Join us as we explore the topics that are always on our minds. From beauty and wellness trends to balancing our careers and ambitions, these conversations fill our WhatsApp inboxes and social media feeds. We're diving into pop culture and asking the question, is it really that deep?
In this episode, we're diving into a topic that's been getting a lot of attention recently: the shift in drinking habits, particularly amongst the younger generations. We're seeing more and more studies suggesting that younger people are cutting back on alcohol, and we wanted to explore why. Is it about being more health conscious, or is there something else going on? With trends like TikTok's Sober Curious movement and the rise of low and no alcohol options, it's clear there's been a really big change in how people are approaching and thinking about alcohol. So let's dive in. Lucy, it's your last week in Australia and I'm so sad.
I am also sad. I wish I could stay, but alas, I do have to get on that plane and go home.
Boo. But you have a recommendation for us because you've had a lot of lovely beach time. You've been reading a lot. What have you got for us?
Yeah, so that's something that I've really liked about being here, is that I've picked up a book like pretty much every day, which is something I just didn't do. I really love reading. I always have. So yeah, I'm very, very grateful for that. But I have been reading From Here to the Great Unknown. It's a memoir by Lisa Marie Presley and Riley Keough, her daughter. So if you don't know anything about Lisa Marie Presley, other than she's, obviously Elvis's daughter, this is the book she was writing before she passed away. She died of a heart attack, similar to Elvis and similar to Elvis's mother. It's a really, really, and I can't stress this enough, it's a really good book. If you're a fan of Elvis Presley as well, it kind of goes into her childhood with her dad. Like, she loved her dad a lot, and kind of how that impacted the rest of her life. And I don't think she actually ever got over that. I don't think she ever got over the death of her father. But yeah, from the perspective of her own daughter as well, I think Riley, she clearly had a very good childhood, actually, from what the book, states. And I think Lisa was a very good mother. She had a lot of issues around addiction, and, obviously she went out with Michael Jackson, which is not, the greatest person to probably be in a relationship with. But yeah, I think it really touches on a lot of different like societal issues and issues with kind of the fame that she had. And yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. I mean, the first kind of quarter of the book, I was like sobbing in a cafe. So yeah, I would recommend. It's a very easy read as well. It's not super long. It's one of those books where you're like, I want there to be more. And I think it's always like that with Elvis Presley, right? Like, everyone, people are still obsessed with him to the day. And like, obviously I wasn't around when he was alive, but yeah, it's one of those. And Lisa had an incredible life. So I would probably stop there because I'm just going to go on about it forever.
It's going to end up being a podcast.
Please get that if you are a fan of music and you are a fan of Elvis Presley.
So we really wanted to talk about sobriety today. With recent data showing that Gen Zs are drinking less, we really wanted to chat about why and give our own thoughts on if it really is that deep. And as per the BBC, drinking behaviours are changing, not just in the UK, but globally. So the UK's largest recent study of drinking behaviour showed in 2019, 16 to 25-year-olds were the most likely to be teetotal, with 26% not drinking, compared to the least likely generation, 55 to 74-year-olds, 15% of whom didn't drink. So we're obviously kind of starting to see this shift into people drinking less. And it's weird because obviously when we think back to our like uni days, it was all about the sesh, wasn't it?
It was all about the sesh. And yeah, I think I found it quite difficult in uni because I suffer with a phobia called emetophobia. And if you know, you know, but that's a phobia of kind of throwing up. And obviously drinking excessive amount of alcohol, you're going to throw up, or people make themselves throw up because they just feel so bad. And like, it's often a relief. Whereas for me, it was like the worst thing that could possibly happen. And I think I've had that phobia since I was about 8 years old. And it kind of impacted my relationship with alcohol. I wouldn't say in a terrible way, because I think it stopped me from, getting absolutely blackout drunk. Like, I've never experienced being blackout drunk, which I'm not like mad about, to be honest. But it would kind of alienate me in kind of more social situations, especially at uni when you're like a fresher, and like literally that entire week is about you going out and just getting absolutely rat-arsed off your face.
Yeah, I mean, it's all centered around booze, isn't it? You'd have freshers week and then, you know, freshers year, your first year of uni. And all of that, I feel like, is just you going out, pub, club, sesh, and everything centers around that. I do wonder, for the Gen Zs that they refer to in that article, what is the new activity of choice?
I found an interesting summarization of kind of the culture around British drinking on Quora, which is kind of similar to Reddit. And someone was kind of saying that, you know, in the UK, there's this like traditional pub culture where everyone kind of goes out in the evening hours, and that's how people kind of socialize. Like, you go to the pub after work, you know, you see the finance bros outside of a pub, like all in their kind of blue and grey attire. But yeah, in the UK especially, we're known for like the hair of the dog, morning after, drinking a lot, Bloody Mary, morning tipple. Like, we're a culture that very much indulges in the kind of Sunday roast and having a drink with your Sunday roast, having a few beers after that, and it may be leading on to something else. But I think the overall drinking habits of the British population have undergone some shifts in recent years. Like, there is a few concerns over public health. There's this kind of rise of the sober curious movement, and like a few changing social attitudes have contributed to the gradual decline in the frequency of alcohol consumption, at least among certain demographics like Gen Z, like the younger generation.
Definitely. And kind of coming over to Australia, New Zealand side of the world, this is interesting, again, from the BBC. During lockdown, Gen Z Australians were most likely to have decreased their alcohol consumption, with 44% reporting they were drinking less, more than double the rate for any other generation. Rates of binge drinking among New Zealand's young people have also dropped by more than half between 2001 and 2012, and had continued to drop since.
And do you think that might be because, obviously in lockdown, there was that social aspect was taken out of it? And I think a lot of people, I know for myself, like, to fit in, to be in a social circle, to go out with your friends, it almost always involves going for a drink, or going to the pub, or going to a bar, or going dancing and having a few beverages. Like, that's kind of the culture, and obviously COVID took that away from us. And then it was a kind of like, oh, well, what do I do now? Like,
yeah, it's really interesting, because I think for a lot of people during COVID, you kind of went one way or the other. Like, I've spoken to people who were like, oh, I invested in some nice wines, I got the whiskey in, like I spent a bit more money on it because maybe they weren't going out as much, so they felt they had the disposable income. Or you had the instance you just spoke about where people really started winding it back. Maybe you were doing like a pub quiz via Zoom and you didn't need that pint there as a crutch, so we just naturally started drinking less. But I think definitely pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, how much 2020 exacerbated or turned down certain drinking behaviours, I think it was probably a really pivotal moment, yeah.
So this kind of like sober movement is growing in popularity. You know, the statistics show it. And among Gen Z and millennials, the hashtag sober curious has over 89,000 videos on TikTok of creators sharing their experience with going sober. And when I feel like the word sober has always kind of historically been aligned with people who are, you know, coming out of addiction and being teetotal and being like, I'm sober now. And that's kind of like, I've kind of in the past, I mean, even a few months, like kind of changed it's almost like the vocabulary of it has changed. Like, sober means something different now. Like, sober can be used as kind of like a blanket tool for everybody. So even if, you know, maybe you didn't drink that much, or you didn't have maybe an issue with alcohol, you can now be like, oh no, I'm sober. Like, I'm not drinking. And maybe that's because it's become a little bit more okay to not drink, and that is the words that you use, whereas before maybe you would just have to like power through it and be like, well, I have to drink, otherwise people are going to think I'm weird if I'm not drinking. Whereas now it's like, oh no, I'm not, I'm sober, I'm going to have this non-alcoholic drink.
I totally agree. Actually, I think that's a really interesting point. When we think about the word sober, we do, like, my brain does go to addiction. You're sober because you have to be sober because, you know, potentially you have a troubled relationship with alcohol. I think when it comes to British culture, I think if you're not drinking, I think it's getting better, But historically, it's been like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Or why are you not drinking?
Have another drink. And it's also that thing of like when you'd be in the club.
The club?
When you'd be in the club or when you'd be in a bar and somebody be, you know, maybe you're like, okay, I'm just going to have one.
Yeah.
And then somebody like, here's shots. Like you have to, you know, I've paid for it. Like, why are you not drinking it?
And then you're boring if you don't get involved.
Yeah, you're boring if you don't get involved. And I think British people specifically have this culture of kind of like, I wind down to a glass of wine. And like my mum's bad for this. Like she doesn't anymore, but like that was like her way of like relaxing. And I think that's a lot of people in the UK's way of relaxing. It's also a very European thing. But I think there comes a point where you're having like 2 or 3 glasses of white wine a night. Like how good is that for you? And are you slightly dependent on that to feel like you need to relax? Like when, you know, if you took that wine away, would you feel like you'd be able to just chill out, or do you need that?
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of people's way of like, calming down is having a glass of wine or having a beer.
Yeah, just winding down of an evening. And I think in some ways, a glass of wine here and there, it's not the end of the world. You do you. But obviously, if it's maybe a crutch or a mask for other things, maybe that potentially is more of an issue. I think that also when we have those instances where people are like, why aren't you drinking? Where? Shots, club? Like, I don't think any of that comes from a bad place. A lot of the time, I don't think people necessarily mean to peer pressure or call you out or alienate someone. I think it's just like, oh, come on, we're all having a good time, like be involved. But one thing I kind of want to talk about is the decrease of alcohol consumption and what we think is causing it. And I think it's kind of hard to pin down one specific reason for it. But as per the BBC, more access to information about health effects of booze, being concerned about how others perceive them, and the definition of a good night out for Gen Zs is changing. And also, we spoke about this as we were researching, financial reasons. Alcohol is fucking expensive.
Yeah, like how much is it for a pint in the UK now? Like £7?
I mean, in London, like 7 upwards, yeah.
It's astronomical. Like, why would a young person go in and buy a pint for £7? Like, do they even have £7?
I mean,
and like a lot of the, like, you know, late teens, early 20s, you know, you're probably maybe, if you're not at uni, you have like a part-time job, or you're probably on minimum wage or an apprenticeship. You know, you're not getting that much income. And then, you know, to spend maybe an hour's worth almost of work on a pint of beer is probably like, well, why would I do that?
Definitely. And I think when we were younger, alcohol probably was cheaper, but it's relative to maybe the money we had in the bank at the time.
Shout out Tesco vodka.
Exactly that. Like, it's people just necking like Tesco own brand to just get on it, or are they actually just like, this isn't serving me, this isn't helping me, and this isn't doing anything for my health? Because another thing they talk about, and we've become increasingly aware of this throughout doing this podcast, is that there's so much more access to information now, especially health information online. Obviously, who's very online? Gen Z's younger generation. They're getting a lot more information about what alcohol is doing to their health.
Yeah, if anyone knows a bout of information about something, it's probably someone in the Gen Z generation online scrolling. And
one thing I do want to touch on though, actually, is one of the things the article from the BBC talks about is how others perceive them. And again, I'm wondering if this is a case of everyone's got a phone on them, everyone's got a camera on them now. You can't go and have a messy night out and be incognito, because someone might end up taking a photo or a video and putting that online. Reading that article makes me think, like, is that what they're concerned about? Is it letting loose, maybe being sick on a pavement and worry that it's going to end up on TikTok?
Well, it's like, where are all the videos of people stealing traffic cones? That's what I want to know. And, you know, arse over heels in a bush. Like, but I think that still does exist. I just don't think, people are as willing to do that. I don't think people get as drunk as that
anymore.
I think that was like, there was a kind of a blip in time where people were literally like running down the road with like no shoes on, screaming and wailing, and like they had like a traffic it was always a traffic cone. I don't know why, but people love to steal a traffic cone.
It was always the thing. Like someone would put a fucking traffic cone on their head, and then it would be like a staple piece in their uni household for like forever. Like they would just have it. It would just live there. Maybe people are worried more about their image. There's definitely something to be said for that. You've spoken a lot about how Gen Zs curate their public persona and their image online and kind of their personal brand, I guess.
Yeah, it's all about that personal brand, right?
Yeah, is part of that personal brand being like, I've got a traffic cone on my head and I've just vomited on the side of a pavement. Maybe they're just like, I'm not into that, it's not cute.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of risky practices are also going down. So Amy Pinay, a senior research fellow at the Centre for Alcoholic Policy Research at La Trobe University in Melbourne, says that risky practices for alcohol are going down. Drug use, unprotected sex, smoking, crime, driving hazardly. Young people are more risk adverse in general. So, you know, even when it comes down to like kind of driving and like crashing, the statistics are down on that as well. Smoking, people are not smoking as much anymore. You know, people are not waking up and having a cigarette for breakfast as much as they were, you know, maybe 10 years ago. And maybe it's just like as a collective, like everyone's just like toning down the kind of destructive behaviors of the past potentially.
I do wonder how much of those other risky practices are going down because alcohol consumption is going down. Because when you think about maybe when you'd have a drink, you're probably more likely to have a cig. There's increased likeliness that you're going to drink drive. Like all of that feels interconnected with alcohol, and that kind of general risk aversion. Obviously, if especially younger gens, if they're not drinking, those inhibitors aren't down, they're maybe not making those mistakes anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I know from my kind of personal experience and like view on it, if I'm having a few drinks and I get a little bit tipsy, I'll want a cigarette. Like it just kind of goes hand in hand with it. And yeah, like you said, like give us a shake. If you're taking the alcohol part out of it, you're also taking the risks of other things. You're taking the risks of somebody getting in a car drunk.
Well, yeah, because you're not going to drunk drive if you haven't drunk. Simple as that.
Facts.
Fucking stating the obvious over here, but you know.
You be coming in with them facts.
It's obvious. For the industry side of things, obviously, there's now a lot of focus on low and no alcohol. And Forbes reported that the low and no alcohol industry was worth $11 billion US, and that was back in 2022. So it would be interesting to see where the market is now. And we said the other day, you know, we've been eating out a lot while you've been here and having a lovely time. We've been eating out more while you've been here, obviously. And we pick up a drinks menu now, and there is a no alcohol section. There's a cocktail section. It's not just have your Diet Coke and fuck off. There's, you know, a lot more choice for people now.
Yeah, so like I was thinking about this actually, you know, when you open a menu up and yeah, you see like there's a list of like non-alcoholic cocktails, which I didn't feel like existed that long ago. It was always kind of like, you know, if you wanted a mojito, you had to have rum in it or whatever. Yeah. Whereas now you can get like a mojito and it probably tastes exactly the same. It just doesn't have a mojito, and it just doesn't have that like kind of buzz about it. Maybe you just get the buzz from being around good people.
Maybe. Obviously, we're not here to kind of like bash drinking. Neither of us are technically sober, but we've definitely had our ups and downs with our relationship with alcohol. Where are you at with drinking? Do you drink? When did you drink the most in your life?
I would say like I drank the most in my life probably when I like hit 17, 18. I think when you're that age, it's like new. It's like it's fun to go and like buy a bottle of Russian vodka from Tesco around the corner. Like it was like that kind of paint stripper. I'm just drinking this because I want to get a buzz and I want to have a good time with my mates in a field. Like, so like that, I probably drank the most then because I mean, I can't touch vodka now. Like, whoa, my God. And it, you know, I did ruin tequila as well for quite a number of years, and I'm finally like back on the tequila. Like I do love a tequila shot. And I feel like if you have a tequila shot, you can just have one or two and you're fucking good for the night. Like it's great. But yeah, I, you know, like I mentioned at the top of this episode, I did find it a little hard to kind of fit in with my kind of phobia around being sick, because when, you know, there was an immense amount of pressure to drink growing up, and it was like, yeah, if you didn't join in or you didn't go to the pub and you didn't smash all these beers down you, like there was something wrong with you. And another thing was like I mean I don't drink as much now just because my lifestyle doesn't fit in with my lifestyle. Like I like to go to the gym over going and having a pint. Like I'd rather go and play tennis instead of like, you know, having a few margaritas. Like I feel like I can have that social aspect, but it doesn't have to involve alcohol.
Yeah.
And also just for like general health reasons, like, you know, there'd be so many times after like smashing the drinks in and then the next day you just feel bloated, you kind of feel grim for longer as well. As you get older, you feel worse. The hangover lasts a lot longer. And, you know, I feel like as you kind of get a bit older, you prioritize other things, and it's not just about kind of having fun with your mates all the time and causing a menace in the streets. Like it's more about like growing as a person, figuring out what you actually like, what exercise you like, what you don't like, and maybe alcohol and, you know, hitting the clubs is just not a part of that.
But do you begrudge your younger self for like you gave yourself the space to kind of figure that out? You went through maybe that messy teen boozy time, and you did uni and you hit the sesh and all that kind of stuff. Sorry, say sesh one more time. Take a shot. But looking back, do you begrudge that of yourself, or do you actually think the teens now who maybe aren't drinking actually have it right?
Well, honestly, like I do think back to that time and think, you know, what if I grew up in a different country? You know, like in America, for example, there's not this like same kind of like, there's not the same culture around drinking as there is in the UK. Like even in Europe, I don't think they hit it as hard. Like I think it's more of a kind of like, it's more of a sociable thing. It's not as like antisocial. I think the UK has this kind of like badge of antisocial drinking, and I obviously saw a lot of that. You will have done if you grew up in the UK. There was a lot of like, there would have been a lot. There is still a lot of this, and I do often wonder what I would have done with the time that I spent drinking and partying over, you know, maybe somebody in a different country who didn't prioritize drinking.
So you feel as though the reason you drank as much as you did at that age was basically societal expectation?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think that's a lot of why people do it. And also I think it's because it is to fit in as well. I think it's a way to like break the ice, especially if you're a little bit nervous or a bit awkward. You know, it was always that thing of like, you go to a party and like for the first like hour, everyone's kind of stood in each corner, like not really talking that much.
Yeah.
And then, you know, have a few beverages and someone's like break dancing on the floor. Yeah. Like it is just the culture of the UK, I think, to do that. And I think it is part of who we are as a society, as a British culture. We are very insular. We don't like to speak about our emotions very much. We don't like to be a problem. We don't like to be a bother. We don't like to, like, you know, in day-to-day life, we're this hardened, like, you know, it's a very
stiff upper lip
society. And I think drinking brings out something which I don't really know whether it's a good thing or not, but it definitely brings out a more boisterous, more confident side to a British person. And I think that's why we have such an issue.
Interesting. I think one of two main reasons I stopped and have massively taken down alcohol consumption is my health, but also my mental health. And obviously we're seeing an awful lot of anxiety diagnosis, depression diagnosis, and one of my biggest things was just anxiety. Like I really struggled when I was hungover. I felt like all of my friends would really bounce back. Everyone would be up out of bed, like scarf and a bacon sandwich and ready to go again. And I would just be like, I feel awful, like mentally and physically, and would struggle to gain energy or, you know, feel happy mentally. Sorry, it's a bit bleak, but it's true. And that was one of the reasons why I kind of took it down. Do you think that's another reason why maybe the younger gens, if they're already anxious and they're already feeling it, they're like, I don't want to exacerbate this?
I mean, Gen Z, I think there's like some statistics somewhere that they're one of the most anxious generations ever. So yeah, that definitely plays a part. I mean, I used to wake up after a night out and feel super anxious as well, and just I just didn't understand how somebody could just carry on and be like, let's go out for 3 nights in a row. There was just no way that I would be able to do that. But yeah, I think that's a really good point about anxiety. And I think, you know, with a group of people that are already kind of suffering with anxiety about the world, about their health, about jobs, about, you know, the current living situation, maybe drinking is just like an additional stress that they don't need.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also if they can find a way to socialize and do stuff and have activities of their choice that don't revolve around alcohol. I find that really interesting because I know when I fully had to hard stop for a while, I felt like I lost friends because I couldn't go and get on it. And, you know, for a while, all I wanted to do was go out and have a drink. And I think I had to almost like look internally and examine why that is and look for other things that interested me and other outlets. And maybe that made me really fucking boring, but it's just what I had to do at the time.
Yeah, it's like that kind of like, if I go out right now and I have these drinks, I'm going to be in the moment feeling good about it and I'm going to have a great time with my mates. But the aftermath of that outweighs that completely, and you've done it too many times and you know the outcome, you know where you're going to be sitting at the end of the day, and it's just not worth it. And I think a lot of people are in a similar boat. Like, is it worth it anymore? Is the after effects of drinking worth it? Like, should we just smoke weed instead? Like, I don't know, like, should we just like do something that's got a little bit of more of a lower risk for a side effect? Like, alcohol is like, it's one of the worst drugs you can do. Like, it's notoriously horrific for you. Like, I mean, maybe we shouldn't talk about drugs, but like, I think there's a lot of statistics that say that, I mean,
sack off alcohol, do drugs.
But like I think there's a lot of things to say about the effects of, like, you know, class Bs and class Cs having a lot less side effects than alcohol. Like, alcohol is one of the most addictive substances in the world, if not the most addictive substance. So I think it is that, you know, people are very well within their rights to be like, okay, maybe I am a bit sober curious now. Maybe I am going to step away from this because it's not helping me.
For sure. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap it up and ask ourselves, is it that deep? And I'm really going to struggle to answer this because in some senses I do think, especially as a British nation, we do really use it as the center of so many gatherings and events. And I know that in the past I've used it as like, oh yeah, let's just get a drink and like break the ice a little bit. Do we just need to be a bit better at communicating without that crutch? Or actually, like, is it a problem if people just aren't drinking? Like, so what if someone's not having a pint?
Yeah, I think it would be really interesting to see what the UK would be like without this drinking culture. Like, I think there needs to be something you swap it out for. You know, like when you swap out a toddler's like dummy for something else. Like, you need to be like, okay, we'll take the alcohol away, but what am I going to do in those sociable hours after work? Like, how am I going to like relate to my colleagues? That's another thing. Like, maybe alcohol is something, it's something that ultimately brings people together, gets people chatting. Maybe it breaks that.
Also celebratory, like you think of a wedding, champagne, right? Like that's where you go and it's a celebration. It gets people up and dancing, and sometimes maybe you need that.
Yeah, and it's just when that line is kind of crossed to being, you know, I'm reliable on this to have a good time, or I'm relying on this to ease my stress. And it's the same thing with like anything, like cannabis. You know, if you rely on something for long enough for, you know, anxiety or stresses in your life, then it's going to become something that's, you know, not good for you, and it's probably not going to benefit you. And, you know, the after effects probably outweigh the benefits of doing it in the moment.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of the time there is a grey area as well. It's like a lot of people are probably maybe going to the pub on a Friday and having a few pints, and that's it.
And that's it. And it's not that deep.
It's not that deep, like, you know. But I think there's the other end of the spectrum, and I think especially in the UK, it can feel a little bit all or nothing. Like, if you're drinking to get drunk. And maybe that's, the older we get, the more we're like, actually, we're going to go out and have a few cocktails and then I'm going to call it a day, or we're going to do a bit of dancing and then that's it. Rather than I'm going out to get blackout. Yeah,
and all in all, I think the more people who are becoming more sober curious, it can only be a good thing. I just don't think that it's an issue. Like, I don't think it's something that should be like, oh, we're taking away our British culture by not drinking all the time. Like, you know, if you want to go and have a few pints and that's how you unwind, you know, so be it. That's your prerogative. But I think, you know, I don't think there should be the stigma around being sober or not wanting to drink. I think that's the shift that we need to move into, is accepting that not everyone around the table might be having a drink. And it's that mindset of, you know, if you ask someone, you bring a table full of beers, don't expect everyone to have one.
Yeah, and not highlighting it as well. If someone is on a Coke or a sparkling water or whatever, just being like, cool, and moving on, rather than like spotlighting that person and being like, not drinking, are you? But
loser.
I think that's a really good place to end it. We really want to discuss this topic further, so we're gonna maybe pull someone on for the next episode who has gone sober for a year, and she's going to talk about her experiences.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that.
I'm really, really looking forward to that. So yeah, that will probably drop in the next season or so, but I think it's really important that we hear from multiple voices. And if you do have experience with drinking or sobriety, please get in touch. We always want to hear your experiences.
It'd be great to hear your stories.
And now it's time for...
And what a part of bollocks!
This is the part of the show where we just chat shit about something insignificant that just fucks us off. And as ever, I've got no idea what you're going to bring to me today. So what's it going to be, Luce?
Okay, this is going to be a bit niche, but it's the arrogance of people who do flaring at a bar. You know, when they're like spinning the fucking lime in the air, like salting the fucking shit and like spinning it around and like twisting it around their back and doing some sort of acrobats. And I'm just stood there like, can I have my cocktail now? And I know that's part of the process, but it's just the sheer arrogance of them doing it. And I think it's the people that do it as well. They're quite arrogant as people. They're like they're like cocktail connoisseurs, and they know a lot about a cocktail.
You're gonna want to watch that bit.
Yeah. And you know, it's like, oh, you don't know how to make a margarita, you peasant.
I mean, they know they're good. They know they can sling a bottle around.
If that's your passion, go for it, but don't bring me into it.
Lucy wants no part of it.
I don't want any part of your flair.
Thank you so much for listening to Shallow. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could leave us a review. It makes a huge difference in helping others to discover the podcast. We always want to hear from you, so feel free to slide into our DMs or follow us on Instagram @shallowpod, or send us an email at shallow@boxedoff.studio. Shallow is a Boxed Off production, written and hosted by Lucy Bell and Phoebe Whittle.